Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 marks the triumphant return of one of the most iconic third-person action games within the Warhammer 40k universe. Developed by Saber Interactive and published by Focus Entertainment, this sequel has been a long time coming, arriving 13 years after its predecessor. As I mentioned previously in my Warhammer 40k Space Marine video, this universe has always captivated me, whether it's the endless battles waged by the superhuman Space Marines, the horrifying alien swarms of Tyranids, or the corruptive influence of Chaos Gods. There is something irresistibly immersive and charming about this grimdark, gothic atmosphere that I love. I'm Arcadenaut here, and today we'll dive deep into the grim, brutal world of Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, revisiting the story of Lieutenant Demetrian Titus. If you don't know who Titus is or would like to learn more about the origins of the Space Marines, be sure to watch my previous video as well. Before discussing those, I will warn you about any crucial spoilers about Space Marine 2, so keep that also in mind. If you are ready, let's dive into the heart of a new conflict as the universe faces a growing threat from the relentless Tyranids. The narrative in Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 picks up roughly 100 years after the events of the first game. Demetrian Titus, once a captain of the Ultramarines chapter, has been accused of heresy by the end of the first Space Marine title. Titus has been assigned to the Deathwatch Chapter for a century as a penance to the suspicions of heresy, and it's there that Space Marine 2 starts. What sets the Deathwatch apart from the other Space Marine chapters is, especially from the Ultramarines, is their method of recruitment. Instead of growing and training their own warriors, the Deathwatch recruits from the best of the best among the existing Space Marine chapters. Each chapter within the Imperium sends some of its finest warriors to serve in Deathwatch voluntarily or as a part of a binding oath. These Space Marines temporarily leave behind their home chapter, donning the black armor of the Deathwatch, taking up new oaths to protect humanity from any kind of Xenos threat, whether it be orcs, Tyranids, or Necrons. Because of that, serving as a member of Deathwatch is highly respected, and it is perfect spot for Titus to mark his innocence with this honor. As the prologue chapter starts with Titus fighting against the Xenos as a Deathwatch captain, his return to the Ultramarines comes at a time when the Tyranids, a hive-minded insectoid alien species, are descending upon a trio of planets, threatening a secretive Imperium research project. Although Titus was a captain during the prequel events, he is now demoted to a lieutenant to prevent any disorder within the squad. Compared to the prequel, what makes Space Marine 2's Titus an intriguing protagonist is, despite his stoic nature, it is probably the burden of his past and his struggle within his team. His demotion and time spent in Deathwatch have left their mark. His new squad mates, Gadriel and Chiron, are both wary of Titus. Their interactions laced with doubt and tension, and this dynamic adds a layer of characteristic and charm that matches the Warhammer universe. Expecting deep conversations about their feelings or daily lives would contradict Warhammer 40k's setup and the foundation of Space Marines' characteristics. When compared to the prequel, Titus and his squad comment and banter about their enemies, their missions, or their doubts and suspicions about the mission or Titus's stoic nature, while also elevating the Space Marine code by saying brother at the end of each sentence. I believe many would find the dialogue somewhat repetitive or maybe simplistic, but believe me, this is more than what you would typically get from Space Marines. They would usually yell something like "Emperor is my shield," "For the Emperor," and probably something like "Purge the filth, death the Xenos scum" over and over again when they fire rains of bolts against their enemies or rip them apart with their hands or chain swords in most of the time. As the Space Marine 2 story progresses, Titus and his squad grow and become closer and stronger brothers again, totally as an improved aspect, especially when compared to the first Space Marine title. This character growth is underlined when a new threat appears around the story's half point, just like the first Space Marine did. Space Marine 2 shines in its commitment to capturing the essence of Warhammer 40k universe. From the relentless nature of the Tyranid threat to the gothic chapels, swamps or ruins covered in blood, Space Marine 2 fully embraces the grimdark aesthetic. Space Marine 2's charm is rooted in a combination of visuals, Warhammer 40k atmosphere of grand-scale battles, and solid action and gunplay experience. Suppose you are looking for deep character arcs or intricate political plots, in that case, you might be slightly disappointed. However, on the other hand, Space Marine 2 might also be a perfect entry to the series. You lead a team of 3 Ultramarines fighting against endless swarm of Tyranids, changing weapons when necessary, turning into Angels of Death of the Imperium. It brings life through its grand-scale action sequences, where each battle feels hard-won but gives a sense of accomplishment. Like the prequel, the combat is a satisfying blend of melee and range mechanics heavily influenced by Gears of War series, though this time Saber Interactive has honed its expertise in horde-based gameplay. The Tyranid swarms in Space Marine 2 are a sight to behold, rushing towards players in an overwhelming tide, forcing them to devise a strategy or use their valuable resources to survive the swarm. This sense of horde was relatively lacking in the prequel, but Saber Interactive solved this issue brilliantly. Whether it be Hormongods, Lictors or Carnifex species of the Tyranids, Titus can cut through all of them with his arsenal of chainswords, bolters and plasma weapons, changing from weapon to weapon according to your enemies or the maps you're in. In addition to that, Space Marine 2 also introduces a new mechanic called the Gun Strike, a perfectly timed shot following a parry or dodge that delivers a decisive blow to enemies in a small cinematic sequence. Of course, meanwhile, doing visceral takedowns to any stunned enemy, cutting them in half, or maybe impaling them with their own arm, Titus regains some of his lost shield and can continue to bring to death the Tyranid horde. Last but not least, players can parry any incoming attack flashing in light blue, stopping the incoming attack and then doing a gun strike, or hitting any small enemy to clear the way. Constantly switching between weapons, cleaving through the waves of Tyranids with melee weapons, and then picking off distant enemies with your bolter or plasma gun is still the core gameplay and the charm of Space Marine series. Although many unique traits are available in PvE Operations Mode and Eternal War PvP mode, Titus only uses Fury to regain his lost health and shield quickly by slaying his enemies, but if you are playing co-op, Titus' squad, Gadriel and Chiron, they present different traits like scanning the enemies. The combat feels grand, sometimes even overwhelming, especially when you're surrounded by Tyranid swarm, but I think this is what makes Space Marine 2 fun and memorable. The cacophony of Tyranid screeches, the sound of chainsword cutting through Tyranid flesh, and yelling for the Emperor with your friend who joins for the co-op experience. With these aspects alone, Space Marine 2 is just fun, memorable and fun. Now, before talking about the PvE Operations Mode and PvP Eternal War Mode, let's talk about Tyranids and the other threat of Space Marine 2 that shapes the course of Titus' journey, as well as the Ultramarines. If you don't want to be spoiled, now is the time, brother. While the Tyranids are the primary antagonists in the early stages of Space Marine 2, as the story progresses, a more sinister threat emerges. Just like in the prequel, the Forces of Chaos. However, this time it is not the Blood God Khorne, but the Changer of Ways, Tzeentch, and his followers, the Thousand Sons. Unlike the Nemeroth of the first Space Marine, the forces of Tzeentch and Yumura brings deception. Unlike the forces of Khorne, the Thousand Sons are potent psykers, wielding the forces of the warp to bend the reality to their will. or even to put doubt and suspicion in the minds of Ultramarines to cause disorder among their ranks. The forces of Tzeentch, knowing for their cunning and manipulation, brilliantly adapted into the narrative rather than being an addition to the gameplay or the enemy variety that Titus and the Ultramarines take out. The suspicion of Gabriel or Chiron's hatred towards the heresy, they are all manipulated by Humora and Tzeentch influences, which forces Titus to summon the chapter master Lord Kalgar to finish this war against the Tyranid swarm and Chaos's corruption. These scenes and narrative choices alone make Space Marine 2 a perfect start to learning more about the Warhammer 40k universe. You get to see how even a flicker of heresy might ruin a Space Marine's mind, how much of a zealot they are. There is no denying that Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 presents a visual feast with grand battles, carnage and heresy. It also allows you to understand the mechanics of this universe, not leaving you in the dark. Of course, you might also enjoy some fan service scenes better if you're already interested in Warhammer 40k. However, Space Marine 2 remains a great entry to this grimdark series. One of the standout features of Space Marine 2 is its post-game content, the Operations Mode being PvE and Eternal War as the PvP. The Operations is a cooperative gameplay mode that allows players to team up as a squad of 3. It is somewhat similar to a Left 4 Dead style experience, presenting a richer experience in some aspects. Operations comprise 6 individual missions, each featuring its own objectives, environments and challenges, and unlike the linear, story-driven campaign, Operations encourage teamwork, tactical cooperation and class customizations. From Tactical, Assault, Vanguard, Bulwark, Sniper and Heavy, there are 6 different classes in Space Marine 2 that you can use in PvE and also in PvP, each with unique armor sets and traits. Some of these classes have a shared weapon loadout, like Tactical and Assault can both use chainswords, while Bulwark carries a shield with power sword or a power fist. Each class does something different, specialized in a different aspect to either provide support, crowd control or damage to clear these operations. Although these 6 operations may seem insufficient, online co-op and playing as different classes create an interesting dynamism within these operations. Tyranids or the forces of chaos act according to your class, try to overwhelm you, and there is this sense of randomness starting to appear as you move on to the medium difficulty when you level up your class to level 5 and unlock some perks that might help you to survive bigger threats. This sense of dynamism ensures that no 2 playthroughs feel exactly the same, but don't get me wrong, I want to see developers adding orcs, maybe the Chaos Marines of Khorne, or maybe something totally new. Like, I really wish to see the Necrons taking part in Space Marine 2, and I believe Space Marine 2 has the potential to be an alternate to Helldivers 2. It has that potential, maybe even more. The sense of swarm surrounding or the scenes of destruction never fade in Operations Mode, sometimes even surpassing the story mode when the difficulty level is increased. However, one issue is that Operations Mode is specifically designed with co-op in mind. That means if you want to play by yourself, the AI companions might feel incompetent when the difficulty is increased, or the progression might seem too greedy and grindy. With that in mind, let's move on to the Eternal War. Last but not least is the multiplayer PvP mode, Eternal War. Introducing the familiar team deathmatch, capture point game modes that we all know, little did I know was how much I missed such multiplayer run and gun shooting. You either play as the Space Marines or the Chaos Marines. The class system is the same here, with each class having a unique trait like jetpacks, shield granting banners or grappling hook to quickly take out an enemy, but the weapon loadout here, this system is heavily dependent on your PvP account level, meaning that you need to play a game a bit if you want to customize your loadouts further. Although I mostly play as Bulwark and Assault in Operations, playing as Tactical is unbelievably fun in PvP. A total run and gun, I throw grenades, flank the enemy, take out multiple targets at once, and then meet my battle brothers for a quick glory. As a plus, if you're a Warhammer nerd, seeing the random team member dressed as the Space Marine chapter feels weirdly satisfying. I always adorn myself in Black Templar colors when I play Tactical, so seeing other Black Templar brothers always bring a smile to my face, and bolts to the heretics. In addition, the developers have also committed to a post-launch roadmap that includes free new modes, missions, and a dedicated Horde mode. As I said, I really hope to see Orcs, Chaos Marine of Khorne, and additional Xeno race being a threat to the Space Marines. Whether it be Dark Eldar, Necrons, Space Marine 2 has every potential to present a captivating, long journey. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 takes full advantage of the next generation hardware to deliver sprawling, atmospheric environments that capture the grimdark essence of the Warhammer 40k universe, especially regarding the Tyranid swarm. It is just awe-inspiring. I had concerns when Space Marine 2 was announced, but it was definitely more than I hoped. Warhammer 40k's grimdark atmosphere is portrayed through the vast hive cities of the Imperium to the war-torn battlefields swarming with Tyranids. Space Marine 2's ability to evoke a sense of scale is admirable, with environments ranging from claustrophobic corridors to expansive battlefields, the towering cities and gothic constructions, complete with cathedral-sized artillery guns and massive statues of Emperor, all capture the world of Warhammer 40k correctly. Tyranid spores rain down from the sky, Tzeentch Chaos Marines appear from the warp, and you are all covered in blood of your enemies. And the funny thing is, you mostly wouldn't find the time for a quick breather to enjoy the visuals. The environments or your objectives can feel repetitive over time, where you fight against waves of enemies, maybe defend a generator. Space Marine 2 is indeed not a groundbreaking, genre-defining experience, but it is fun and a must-play experience even if you are not a Warhammer 40k fan. And if you are, don't just waste a second and try this experience. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 doesn't reinvent the wheel, but again, it doesn't need to. It builds upon the foundation of the first game, refining the combat, expanding the world, and delivering a visually stunning and brutally satisfying experience. Ultimately, it is a power fantasy that makes you feel like a near unstoppable force on the battlefield, and that feeling is amplified tenfold when you are playing with friends in co-op mode. Whether you're a veteran of the Warhammer 40k universe, or someone looking for a solid action game, or for an opportunity to learn more about the Warhammer 40k universe, Space Marine 2 offers a brutal, thrilling experience that is well worth your time. So basically, purge the heretics, cleanse the Xeno scum, and glory to the Imperium and for the Emperor, brothers. As always, thank you for watching today's video. If there is any Warhammer 40k video or content you would like to see in the future, share your thoughts by the comments below. Any humble support through Patreon and YouTube join is really appreciated, and I will see you soon in my next video.